diplomacy or should we allow retaliation? Secondly, should we have an independent or a dependent army for Japan? And third of all, is Japan really able to get an army in the first place? Now, I'm tackling these issues one by one. Now, regarding the issue of diplomacy versus retaliation, side opposition has came to tell us today that retaliation for Japan isn't really going to work. Rather, Japan should depend on diplomacy, such as trying to talk North Korea into not firing missiles or trying to be friendly with North Korea. Now, we see in the first place, Japan is unable to, first of all, be friendly with North Korea because of the entire vendetta against Japan that North Korea has against, because basically Japan has invaded North Korea and Korea as a whole during the Second World War. And that is one of the primary reasons why North Korea is basically firing missiles towards the coast of Japan. And we see that diplomacy isn't really going to work because diplomacy with North Korea has been used over all these years, trying to get North Korea to put down its nuclear weapons and basically trying to get North Korea to be friends with the world at large. And it has never actually worked. And we don't think that that whole idea of trying to get North Korea to be friends with Japan is actually going to work. So what are we left with, ladies and gentlemen? We're left with allowing Japan to be able to retaliate, to be able to protect itself. We can really outline to you why Japan isn't able to protect itself, because basically a defensive army is not enough. We see that every army out there has a military that has offensive and defensive side, ladies and gentlemen. And we see that is basically the key. To have a strong and booming army, ladies and gentlemen. And we want to show you that the reason why Japan only has a defensive army was because the West deliberately wanted to weaken them. And by deliberately weakening them and only allowing a defensive army, we see that Japan is in a very weak position against North Korea. As my second is really obvious to you, sit down, sir. We see that even though, yes, we might have seen missiles flying in from the coast of North Korea to the coast of Japan, and we see that there isn't really a big enough shield to protect against a nuclear army. But we see that basically the thing we want here, ladies and gentlemen, is for Japan to be able to retaliate and at a moment's notice, contain the situation that might arise from North Korea. Even though we cannot prevent a missile from flying in, what we see is that we can actually stop North Korea from firing more missiles if you have a proper army, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that the defensive army is isn't able to do that because the defensive army isn't trained for offensive attacks against North Korea, ladies and gentlemen. And we see that if we're not able to contain the situation properly, we not only have to stop troops coming in from North Korea, but we also have to we also have to ensure that no more troops will be coming in from North Korea by going in and ensuring that we are going to stop all the troops from coming in at all, ladies and gentlemen. And no, thank you, sir. Now, should we have a dependent army or an independent army for Japan? They have come up to tell us that in the event of any crisis in Japan, America will basically come in and save the day and all that fluffy little talk, which might sound nice, but basically isn't going to work, ladies and gentlemen. While American troops are currently flying over, shipping over, and bringing tanks in to protect Japan, what will Japan basically be doing? Japan will be a sitting duck for North Korea, ladies and gentlemen. We see that the situation with North Korea and Japan is one that is very hostile. And should any situation arise, it's basically going to put Japan in a very weak position. And what we don't want here today is Japan to be in a weak position. That's why we're allowing them for them to bulk up their army. Before I go on, yes, anyone of you?
We say here that Japan will be a shiny duck because of its military, a better target, because and still unable to defend itself.
Sit down, sir. Yes, we agree that with all the tanks, it will be very shiny sitting duck. But a sitting duck is a sitting duck, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want them to be in a weak position here, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that that whole idea of how to agitate North Korea and basically it will trigger the whole start of a big war. We think that is basically quite a load of trash, ladies and gentlemen. We think that Japan right now is in a very agitated situation because what it seems like North Korea is bulking out its army, while all it has is a defensive army that isn't even enough at all, ladies and gentlemen. And we think we owe it to Japan, who has contributed a great amount of cash to the entire economy, and has basically attended talks and proven itself to be an ally of the world at large. We think that we owe it to Japan to allow it to be able to defend itself properly, ladies and gentlemen, because its current situation is not enough. Now, another point of contention whether Japan is able to actually be able to even get an army. Now, we see here that what they have brought to us today is that military requires people, land, and cash. Now, people, ladies and gentlemen, 40% of the population of Japan might be a small amount in terms of that. But you see that if Singapore is able to get a proper army, we don't think that it's actually even a situation where you have less people than them. And in terms of money, Japan is one of the most booming economy in the world, so we don't see that that's an issue either. And in terms of land, I think they still have more than Singapore, and if Singapore can do it, we don't see why Japan can't. So for all these reasons, ladies and gentlemen, I've basically proved to you that side opposition doesn't have any case at all, and basically he wants Japan to be split up, which we don't want here to be. So yes.